Chippewa for offering this place to hold this event. I especially want to thank my sister Linda for organizing, for being an amazing organizer. I mean, half or 2/3 of things that came together today for this are responsible for my sister's skill and attention. So when I was born, World War II was still going on. Hitler was still alive.
Wow.
China and the United States were allies with Russia. Germany and Japan were the enemies. So a lot can change in one lifetime. I was born before the atomic bomb. I was approximately 8 months old when the first test at Alamogordo of an atomic bomb occurred. I was born before people had TV. I can actually remember when my grandfather brought home, we lived with my grandfather. He brought home a TV, and it was the first TV in the neighborhood. And after he brought it, half the neighborhood, in my mind at least, but the room filled up, the living room filled up, and they all came to watch the Cleveland Indians baseball game. I was maybe 6 years old. When I was born, there were no transistors. Louder. When I was born, there were no transistors. No
Just yell. Just yell, John.
Very good. Professional.
Is this good? Yeah. Okay, last thing I said is when I was born, there were no transistors, no lasers, no programmable computers, no copy machines. None of those had been invented yet. Telephones were all connected with wires. They had rotary dials, which young people have never seen or even maybe heard of. They were all black. There was no plastic. I mean, nylon had been invented, but there all these polymers, all these other polymers. So there was no plastic, I think. Airplanes all had propellers. I saw my first jet plane fly over when I was maybe 10 or 12 years old. And we knew what it was. Oh, wow, it's a jet. And it was a Korean War era, fighter jet went over. And somehow we knew what it was, us kids, but it was very exciting. There were no credit cards. There were single department store credit cards, but there were no general credit cards. So I also want to say, I feel very grateful that I've had a very fortunate life. I've been very fortunate. I've been so fortunate, in fact, had so many joys, so few sorrows, that if I were to die a horrible death, slow and painful, I would still come out totally ahead in the calculus of happiness and what life. Way ahead. So I will mention a few items of my good fortune. I was born in America. This being born an ethnic Jew, this was especially significant. The Holocaust was going on, was maybe at its peak, and I was safe in America. And I remember growing up that even before the Second World War, I was told that the Jews in America thought that America was the best place for the Jews because it was a place in the world they were the safest, and it's a place in the world where they were discriminated against the least. Not that there weren't wasn't discrimination. I mean, there were houses not that far from us that had contracts that forbid them ever sell it to a Jew or a black person. But those contracts weren't outlawed till later, so Jews had some discrimination, but still it was thought this was the best place in the world for Jews, even before the war. Another fortunate thing that occurred is when I met Susan Goodman, now Susan Josephson, under favorable circumstances. We met in January 1964, which makes it 60 years ago. We were officially married in 1966, so 57 years ago. It's been great. Another fortunate event is that I came of age in the 60s, which are interesting times, now legendary in some quarters. I won't say a lot about the 60s, but it was a time of great, cultural innovation and exploration, especially in America, but then it spread, in various ways to Europe and Japan at least, and other places. It had cultural effects. Another fortunate event was when I met my longtime friend Chandra, who's sitting right there. He's my longtime friend and academic colleague and co-author and ex-boss. We met under favorable circumstances in 1982, as best I can figure it. I was fortunate to find exciting and engaging work. With Chandra, we did research in artificial intelligence, which was very cutting edge in its day, very exciting. We were there when the internet started, and lots of things. Many stories around that. Another thing was favorable event was meeting Shifu Gao under favorable circumstances. This is approximately 10 years ago. Another good luck, another piece of good luck was having healthy kids who grew up to be nice people, successful adults, and with whom we still have close relationships. This is especially satisfying because our child raising practices were very non-standard. I could explain if anyone's interested, but we didn't raise them with rules. We raised them with considerations and lots of discussion. Another stroke of good luck is having 4 completely delightful grandchildren who are smart and high-spirited and healthy. 3 of these grandchildren, so here, still think it's worth it, I guess, to come and have a regular movie night with their grandfather, despite them now being 18 years old, 21 years old, and 26, which when I was that age, it would have been inconceivable to hang out with my grandfather, apart from living in a different city and so on. So I've been lucky to live a full and interesting life, and I've had actually many memorable adventures, way too many to mention, but I'll mention a few. I've had a wonderful life with Susan, who's been a close friend and mother of my children, and grandmother of my grandchildren. I actually grew my hair big and grew out my beard before the Beatles did, if that means anything to you culturally. I was probably the first male hippie, some of my old friends may remember this, who got a pierced ear, who got an earring. This was imitated, and the fashion kind of spread, so I think I started the whole thing. left ear was pierced in New Mexico by my future mother-in-law, who went on to become a rather famous anthropologist and who studied ecstatic trance and spirit possession as a phenomenon. Very interesting mother-in-law. I midwifed my first child, Jason. I was the head midwife. I had backup, but I was the main midwife. That was rather ecstatic and deep experience. Fox was there. Was also on the crew. I held Susan's hand in the operating room when my second child, Seth, was born by cesarean section. I held her hand while they cut her open, and then they handed him to me. Before doing, after they cut the cord, they handed him to me. That was a rather also peak ecstatic experience. It's very hard to describe the amount of, intensity of the emotion. I was also present for the birth. I was part of the support team for two of my grandchildren, who were also born at home. I was the vicar, that is, I conducted the civil ceremony for a wedding in Cambridgeshire in England. It's not something I ever would have predicted or expected, right? Besides my academic research, I was CEO of a technology startup company that struggled along for a decade or so before it went under. They kind of buried the vision and buried the dream. But we made a lot of really interesting and cool software while that went on. I've seen Chandra and I saw together a night launch of the space shuttle. That was jaw-droppingly amazing and spectacular. Also with Chandra, I bathed in the Ganges in India. With my son Seth, I meditated under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya in India. I trained martial arts at Shaolin Monastery, Shaolin Songshan in China, with my Shaolin brother Chris Shepard, who's here somewhere. Yep. There he is. Besides good luck, I think I've managed to live this long in good health because of these things. I mean, as your doctor will probably tell you, to promote good health in the long run, you need to exercise, you need to have a healthy diet, you need to control stress. Well, I quit smoking and began regular exercise just before I turned age 35. I made this decision that smoking was, in effect, cowardly suicide, and I managed to break the habit. That was the fourth try before I managed to break it. I talked to a heroin addict not long afterwards who said that he thought cigarettes were just as addicting as heroin. It was hard. Anyway, I've had a vegetarian diet since about the age 30. Essentially, almost always a kind of high fiber, low fat diet. In recent times, it's been more like close to vegan. So I've not been strict about vegan, but I've been strict about vegetarian. I think I had a pepperoni by mistake at one point. I've meditated regularly, Zen meditation, since I was about 28 years old. And it's been every day for the last 15 years. With the exception, I think I've missed a total of 10 days in the last 15 years. I took a lot of nutritional supplements for nutrition. I made a habit of, a hobby, if you will, of longevity nutrition and things nutritional. I think that helped. That it's, you know, hard to say for sure. I take a lot of pills, but I would say the evidence is circumstantial for and indirect for the benefits of these things. Very hard to say. I had actually, when push comes to shove, great doctors. Peter Howison, I would mention, who was along for 40 years at least, who let me be my own doctor pretty much and backed me up.
And he
Yep.
sends his good wishes. He wasn't able to be here.
Yes, yes. I also want to mention Sanford Goldberg, my chiropractor, who has been great support for my frame over the years. My Matthew Orr, who is not here, but was a retinal surgeon who fixed my retinal detachment so I can still see out of my left eye, actually. And my orthopedic surgeon, whose name is Nathan Mesco, who did my hip resurfacing, so I have a metal hip joint at this point. It's been a year and a half or a little more since the surgery. I was forbidden to jump for the first year, so I couldn't practice various things. I was actually on crutches for the first 6 weeks, etc. So now, next segment of my talk here, advice. I get to, this is my birthday. This is, I have this captive audience. So let me give you some advice. Take care of your body and mind. Okay? You need to exercise regularly. But exercising just to preserve your health and prevent decline is not inspiring. It requires a lot of persistent discipline, and it's difficult, especially, it's part of a busy life. So the way to manage that, my advice to you is to find a way to make it fun, to gamify it, to challenge yourself. Can I do this? Can I do this? To train for something. Can I run a marathon? Can I do a wushu form? Can I run a lap faster than I ran it last time? So make it fun. Just don't go out. I mean, if necessary, just go out and summon the discipline to get some kind of exercise, but it really doesn't have to be grim. Wushu training in particular has been great. It's not only helping keep me young, but it helps me age backwards, I think. That's somewhat speculative, but hey. Wushu training in particular promotes strength and stamina and flexibility and coordination and balance and cardiovascular function, metabolic health, healthy body weight, positive attitude, encourages, trains determination, also fighting ability. I mean, it comes down to it. So take care of your mind. I've controlled stress with regular meditation, but I encourage you to control stress with meditation or prayer or walking in the forest or watching comedies. Something regularly to control stress in your life so you don't, tighten up all the time. Also, to take care of your mind, I encourage you to find a close friend that you can talk to, that you can talk through things honestly with. Luckily, I'm married to one. But if you can't find such a close friend, find a therapist, find a counselor, find somebody you can talk to, honestly, about what's on your mind. Another piece of advice. Tame your anger. Anger will get you in trouble more than anything. When you're angry, you're very focused. everything is hyper simplified. You're in a state in which you're highly likely to do something you'll regret. You don't really need anger. The only use I've ever found that I thought was positive for anger is that anger at myself could sometimes help get me out of a depression, a period of depression. And I think depression might be worse than anger. Anger, I found under those circumstances, was useful as a means, but that's the only use I've ever found. And since I managed to ditch it, I think I've managed to ditch it. I don't do outrage politics anymore. I mean, I can feel sad about what's going on, or, you know, wish things were different, but I don't get angry anymore. I think I'm a lot healthier of mind because I've managed to abandon anger. I'm not sure it's permanent, we'll have to wait and see. Another piece of advice, watch your cash flow. Take care that your outflow is consistently, on average, less than your income. The difference in the long run is enormous between spending a little more than you make and spending a little less than you make. It's not much difference, but in the long run, it will make a big difference. So spend less than you have coming in. I mean, it's wealth and independence versus poverty and debt. You know, that's your choice. Another piece of advice is if in your 30s, or when you're 30, or if you're older than 30, do a posture check. Fix your posture. I think a lot of problems I've had physically had to do with I was carrying my hip posture poorly. I mean, consult a physical therapist or a chiropractor or, you know, a Tai Chi teacher maybe, or a, you know, yoga teacher, Pilates teacher, somebody who understands these postural things. I believe that, you know, I had sort of lower cross syndrome. I stuck my butt out too much. In effect, not a whole lot, but too much. My pelvis was tipped forward. In the long run, that put stress on my joints, ultimately, you know, contributed to the arthritis. I think I had my hip, contributed to a hernia that I had to have repaired at one point. That poor posture in the pelvis leads to, in fact, tight muscles across your quads and weak butt muscles and weak abdominal muscles. The abdomen tends over time to protrude more. So you have to tuck your butt under. Not extremely, but you have to straighten your lower back above. So I suggest you get it checked out at some point and do what you need to do to change your habits of posture. The upper body posture is also, especially if you're on computers all the time, the tendency is going to be to stick your neck out forwards, roll your shoulders forward. You'll wind up with weak muscles in the upper back. If you do lots of push-ups and no rowing, the muscles across the front will get strong, get tight, pull your shoulders forward into sockets, and it'll roll you forward. You need to do, if you do push-ups, you also have to do pulling to keep your balance. So my overall advice there is have your posture checked out. Don't just do it yourself because you already have your habits and you probably aren't aware of how bad your posture is, probably. So have somebody who understands it check it out and tell you what to do to correct it, what habits to form. Another piece of advice, don't eat French fries. They're terrible for you. It's all oil and fast carbohydrates. The oil is probably sat there for a long time getting oxidized. And it'll cause oxidative stress, it'll cause inflammation. It's got too much salt. So my advice is don't eat French fries. It's not the only bad thing you might eat, but they're so common and people think they're so benign and they're not. French fries are very bad. Another piece of advice, go easy on the sugar. this gets more and more important as you get older. I mean, kids can probably handle considerably more sugar than adults can, but at some point, you've got to crank it down. And especially by the time you're my age, you'd be very likely if you can handle hardly any at all. I mean, one whole piece of cake is too much for me, you know. And finally, piece of advice, listen to your kids. Don't just talk at them. Listen to them. Listen to what they have to say. Listen to their reactions to what you say. I mean, very important. I mean, a good relationship with your kids in the long term will pay off the whole rest of, will pay off. Good relationship when they're young will pay off your whole life. And listening to your kids will help. Help make that true. So, I ask you guys, what is Kung Fu?
Supreme skill from the hard work!
Thank you.